Recently, James Gunn released a one-sheet of all the actors who are going to be in his Suicide Squad sequel, and this got me thinking about how Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy and the original Suicide Squad are very similar films. But Guardians is a masterclass on how to introduce several weird characters while integrating them into a fantastic new environment, while Suicide Squad is a...
And you're boring.
And there's one similar scene in each movie that shows why one is far better than the other. This is Screen Crush. Hello, hi, I am Ryan Airy. First, let's talk about the many similarities between these two films.
What has the galaxy ever done for you? Why would you want to save it?
But the world never done for us anyway. It hates us.
First, they both follow lesser-tier characters who've been kicking around the comics for decades. These characters are outcasts, criminals, and degenerates. Each movie features at least one scene where law enforcement officers give exposition about these characters while they're still in prison.
What a bunch of a-holes.
The worst of the worst.
The male lead in the film is a talented wisecracker with unresolved family issues. The female lead is fresh off an abusive relationship with a domineering male side villain. Each team has a wisecracking tech genius who provides the gadgets, a mostly silent non-human brute, and a powerful tattooed character with a dead wife and child. The deaths of his family are his primary motivation throughout the entire movie. There's also a female villain who's loosely affiliated with each team. Enchantress starts off as a team member, and Nebula joins the Guardians in a later movie. There's even an older mentor figure with their own agenda who the team doesn't fully trust. Also, both movies feature a soundtrack filled with mostly vintage pop music. At first, these unlikely heroes band together for their mutual benefit to escape a prison. Then they have a drink at a bar together where some of their more vulnerable character issues are laid bare.
Normals is setting on the dryer. People like us, we don't get normal.
Why didn't ask to get made?
They're forced into action when the powerful MacGuffin falls into the enemy's hands. In Guardians, it's the Power Stone, and in the Suicide Squad, it's the heart of the Enchantress, or when the Enchantress herself joins the brother, if you actually want to stretch this metaphor a bit. The heroes now recognize that the fate of the world is at stake. They join together with law enforcement to save the planet. This desperate final mission is against a villain with overwhelming mystical power. The male leads of the movie have formed a personal relationship with a law enforcement officer that helps the police trust the new team.
But he's not 100% a dick.
These law enforcement officers' primary concern is to protect the people they love. In the finale, the hero sees a vision of his lost loved one who inspires him to complete the mission and save the world. Both films end with the heroes being rewarded with leniency from the law and the promise of further adventures to come. So, those are the similarities, but there are differences. Oh, the differences. Suicide Squad highlights how hard it is to introduce multiple protagonists in a big-budget superhero film. Most Avengers movies are great at this because they were preceded by a solo or team-up film that already introduced most of the characters. The X-Men movies have mostly dealt with this by not dealing with it, often focusing on Wolverine or the relationship between Charles and Magneto, instead of how the whole team operates together. For instance, Storm and Cyclops never really have a conversation until the last X-Men movie, Dark Phoenix.
We need you. I need you.
I've got your back.
But Guardians of the Galaxy brilliantly introduces characters by balancing exposition and action. In other words, Gunn knows when to show and when to tell. As an example, he shows us how good of a fighter Gamora is, but he tells us about her relationship with Thanos.
When Thanos took my home world, he killed my parents in front of me. He tortured me.
Because it would take several flashbacks to really flesh out Gamora's relationship with her father, and we don't want to bog down a whole movie with flashbacks. So instead, we see how this relationship has affected Gamora in the present. She's trying to run away from home.
I wasn't retrieving the orb for Ronan. I was betraying him.
To illustrate how efficient the movie is, we're putting the time code for each action I'm describing on screen. So Quill is the main character, so we get to know a lot about him, his past, and what kind of a guy he is. He steals the Power Stone in his first scene, and this action is the catalyst for the movie's story. Ronan sends Gamora to find him, while Rocket and Groot want the bounty that Yondu put on his head. Every action leads into the next action, and along the way we learn about these characters, their personalities,
Hiding? That's not fair.
their skill sets, and how they'll interact with one another.
Quit smiling, you idiot. You're supposed to be a professional.
This culminates in their arrest. In The Kiln, we get a little more exposition that's not necessary to the story, but it's nice because it helps to flesh out the characters.
Pretty high and mighty coming from the lackey of a genocidal maniac.
Once they're in jail, we meet Drax. In one scene, we find out that he's feared,
They're Drax, the Destroyer.
what he wants,
He killed my family. I shall kill one of his in return.
and that he's hilarious.
Why would I put my finger on his throat?
Then we check in again with the movie's villains before the heroes make a plan to escape together and sell the orb for themselves. All of this culminates in the kill and jailbreak, which is my favorite sequence in the movie. Just like a heist film, the stakes are carefully laid out at the beginning. The heroes have clear individual goals. Also, like any good heist film, the plan immediately goes wrong when Groot steals the Quantum X battery too soon. So right off the bat, they're at a disadvantage with the whole prison security bearing down on them. They would have been outmatched if Drax hadn't joined the battle and gotten Rocket a weapon. Plus, we get to see a talking raccoon firing a machine gun on top of a sentient tree, which is the greatest cinematic first since Citizen Kane pioneered deep focus cinematography. Every character gets a chance to show off their abilities, either their fighting skill, or in Quill's case, his knack for charming people to part with their legs. These different skills pace the scene perfectly. We go from Rocket and Groot screaming and firing a machine gun to this sharp edit.
You need my what?
And then right back into a different kind of action, Gamora's hand-to-hand combat. See, this keeps the action going without it becoming repetitive. If the whole scene was just the heroes firing guns, it would have gotten pretty old quick, as we'll see in a little bit. Then, because the heroes are all moving toward one goal, they meet up in the control center of the cafeteria and pose together for the first of many times. No, they're not a perfect team, and at this point their alliance is temporary. But all of the pieces are in place for the rest of the movie, and all of this happens at just under 39 minutes. Now to compare, let's look at how inefficient Suicide Squad is and examine the first scene where they come together as a team. The movie starts with Deadshot and Harley in jail. We learn that he's a badass and she's insane. Then Waller describes them to Chief Hopper. There's a Deadshot flashback and then Harley flashback, and at this point 1/3 of the movie has been flashbacks. Waller describes the lesser characters using shorter flashbacks. She describes the eventual villain and her boyfriend. Now we are 20 minutes into the movie. Then she describes the villain some more, now pitching her plan to a generic conference room that has a couple LED TVs with the White House logo on them. Finally, she recruits the team one at a time, but not before giving Deadshot, a chance to look like a badass. This entails shooting a bunch of targets. This is completely unnecessary since we've already seen a much cooler scene where he ricochets a bullet to kill a snitch. Then we cut to the movie's villains for a while to establish the growing conflict. And then around minute 38, when the heroes finally get out of jail, we have to go show the Joker again first. Now finally, at 43 minutes, the team is out of jail and the pieces are in play. Wait, here's Katana, we have to meet Katana. Now we're off on the mission. The helicopter gets shot down, then they start walking, and they walk a lot, the Suicide Squad.
All it was a bunch of people walking.
So at 57 minutes in, they finally meet the evil army of the Enchantress, and we get to see our team fight together for the first time. In Guardians, this fight happens 20 minutes earlier, not counting the little skirmishes where they met each other for the first time. But Suicide Squad's team come together fight is really, really
boring.
They walk down the street, talking, having little interactions where you kind of get to know them, like the building blocks of a teen movie.
Why do you need people?
But as they're walking, there isn't any kind of atmosphere. It's not scary. They're not excited or worried. They're just there on an empty street. You'd think that since the city was taken over by two evil deities, that there would be something scary or suspenseful, but nope, they just walk. Even when they see this car that's all melted and fleshy, no one reacts. It's just a nice prop that they look at for a second. They finally come up on these ugly dark shapes that look like lumps of wet, no-bake cookie. Then Waller says,
"We're not here to fight them. You know that doesn't work."
So this is telling us, oh snap, these hot asphalt putties are going to be badasses, an unstoppable magic army. Even the military's afraid of them. But then the putties attack and our heroes are all alone. How can they possibly beat this unstoppable army of the undead? Oh, by shooting them. Hitting them on the head, cutting them with a katana, throwing them really hard, and of course, by shooting them. There's a little bit of character stuff in this fight, like Diablo walking away and Captain Boomerang sneaking off to have a beer, which I can totally relate to. That would be me in a superhero movie, but the fight is just mostly guns and ammo. The fighting here doesn't tell a story. We don't see the heroes fail because they don't work together as a team. We don't really get to see their powers. Captain Boomerang doesn't throw a boomerang. Killer Croc is just a generic strong guy and everybody else just shoots things. Now watch Captain Flag fight this monster. He stands straight up and blocks 2 punches without breaking a sweat. And this guy has no powers. There are no stakes in this battle. You never feel like the huge unstoppable army is either huge or unstoppable. They're just dark blobs for the heroes to hack and slash. And this is where, I gotta say, video games have a bad influence on movies. This scene has more in common with Dynasty Warriors than an action scene from a motion picture. Just look at the end of the fight, when Deadshot single-handedly takes down all of the villains. I mean, was this in Will Smith's contract? Did he say, well, if I'm in this, I get to be the one who's a badass and kills all the monsters?
proud of you.
The action is terrible, the scene doesn't forward the story in any way, and the villains are useless and disposable. So now, for the rest of the movie, I know that we don't have to worry about this army. We know the heroes can beat the brakes off of them. So what if, instead, the squad had to work together to escape an overwhelming force? For the rest of the movie, we would feel like they were being hunted, like the odds were stacked against them. And we need them to feel disadvantaged so they'll have something to overcome later in the story. As it stands now, the fight only changes one thing. Now they know they're fighting magical creatures and not terrorists.
What happened? Terror attack!
But then, why did Waller not tell them the truth from the start? If you're sending a strike team in to neutralize a target, the first thing you do is tell them about the target. Sure, the Guardians take out the Nova Corps pretty easily too, but the Nova Corps aren't the villains. The movie works better if the Nova Corps are useless in a fight, so they'll need the Guardians to help them during the movie's climax. So this fight in Suicide Squad doesn't serve any purpose, it's bland.
And you're boring.
And the rest of the movie has problems too. You could take out the Joker subplot and nobody would notice. The evil, millennia-old god monster is killed with a bomb, and the flashbacks weigh down any kind of forward momentum. The soundtrack is abrasive, there are 3 songs in the first 4 minutes. You don't know. And there's this line.
Lady, you are evil!
And the 2005 era digital effects of Brother. And Margot Robbie is the best part of the movie, but her character has no arc. She spends the film pining for the Joker, and at the end, when the Joker shows up, she doesn't reject him to stay with their new friends, she just goes along with him. She's my favorite DCEU character, and she really deserved better than this movie. And it's a shame because there's some other great stuff in here. Viola Davis nails Amanda Waller's ruthless efficiency. The scene where the Fresh Prince motivates Diablo is also great.
I'm touching you. I'm touching you. Do something. Touch me!
And really should have happened during the boring monster fight. Everything with Deadshot's daughter feels heartfelt, even when he teaches her how to kill people at the end.
You shoot a man down here on the street. That's how far the bullet actually goes.
Plus, look at this transformation into the Enchantress. It's wicked cool. And mostly this scene at the bar, where all the characters get to talk about their messed up lives and the impossible odds that they face.
And they can't have people knowing the truth. We're the patsies. We're the bad guys.
This feels like the movie we could have been watching this entire time, instead of an overstuffed Will Smith vanity project with the color palette of a Nickelback video.
And you're boring.
What's the best DCEU film so far? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like, please subscribe. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.